Hello, everyone. It's April the 28th, and it's me and Mike and Shannon tonight. But unfortunately, we haven't got Karis with us, but hopefully she'll be back next week. Um, so I was just saying to the others, I haven't got everyone. Oh, shoot. Sorry. Forgot to mute that. Right. Um, so I haven't got a fixed agenda. So if there's anybody out there who wants to ask any questions, just stick them in the chat. And anything you guys would like to raise before we can just go back to what we were talking about? Well, not immediately
I mean,
before,
if
but
there's a couple of questions that have come in on one of my videos. If I don't know if we kind of want
yeah, we
to
could.
find something to talk about. It's just, I mean, it's just a fairly standard question to be honest. So if there's other stuff, then I'd say do that stuff first.
Well, I haven't got anything. How about you, Shannon? There's anything you wanted to raise?
No.
Okay. I should say a little bit of news. I got what I think is the craziest section. It wasn't even a Section 184 notice. It was a minded to make a Section 184 notice today. And would you like to guess how many pages long it was?
I say 11.
And up,
I was going to go for 9.
up, up,
What, 15?
up.
No.
Yeah.
20.
Multiply that by 4
What?
and add 8, I think. It was 88 pages long.
What? Surely that was just nonsense. It wasn't actually. It was just.
Was it repeated?
Well, it involves somebody that watches your channel anyway. I don't know if watches mine, so they may know it, but I won't go into it in too much detail. But it looked like the council, the caseworker had got some new software which enabled them to sort of copy and paste nearly all of the housing file into the letter. So there was even sort of copies of application forms and maps and things. But they said we weren't. It's taken about quite a few weeks, as you can imagine, to prepare this thing. But then I was invited to, or the client was invited to give comments within 7 days. And I was thinking of some sort of witty comments to make, but I thought I'd probably be taken the wrong way. But I was going to be sort of spare a thought for me and the poor reviewing officer who are going to have to go through this. But I said, just look, come on, this is much too long. Can you give me? Don't bother. I'm not going to give you comments on an 80-page document. Just give me I think 4 pages is reasonable for a Section 1A. I mean, if you can normally express yourself in 4 pages of A4, can't you? So I said, just do that, and then we can go for review if.
Are you able to say which council it was? I'm just wondering, like, because most councils use the same sets of templates.
I think I won't be breaking any laws if I say it was Waltham Forest.
Okay. I just wonder if like they've got this fancy new software that does with that. Because in one sense, having like effectively a subject access request wouldn't be a bad thing to have, just not as part of a Section 184 letter. It'd be nice to have all that stuff separately, probably as copies of it, but
and not with 7 days to give comments. Like that's how long did they take to put it all together? Like, where's the logic in? That's where the system falls down. Is silly little things like that. 7 days to comment on 88 pages worth of information that is about someone's life and a life-changing decision.
Yeah.
What?
It was very strange, and I had actually had to write send them a pre-action letter for judicial review, because they were being so slow in issuing the letter, and then I think they overreacted a bit. So that was that, and then I was just reading before I came on. Maybe I'll just talk about before we started. I know one of my pet subjects is, I mean, tell me if this gets too boring, is Section 190 of the Housing Act 1996, which you may remember is the one about duties to people. Let's go to here. Whoops, that's the wrong screen. Duties to people who've been found intentionally homeless. And there's another case. Where's it gone? I think it's just here. Yeah, this one here that's on Nearly Legal, if you can see it. I don't know, it's a bit small for most people, but it's a lady called Socrates Ofulriado versus London Borough of Haringey. Without wishing to name drop, I can say that I was actually in the Court of Appeal when they heard that case, because it's a Morrison Spowett case, Not mine, but the person who's dealing with it wasn't around, so I went into cover. And I actually thought they were going to find it in our favour, but they didn't. Um, but the main thing with the appeal, it's quite an interesting point, is that what they did was she refused an offer of accommodation. So they said, right, that's it. We're treating we consider the offer to be unsuitable. And it didn't really, the decision letter didn't go into detail about what further duties were owed. And one of the grounds of appeal was that they hadn't addressed the issue of whether a Section 190 duty was owed. And I've been having this problem with a few councils. I've got a challenge going on with Ealing at the moment where they did this. They said basically, you've refused an offer, goodbye, we're not offering you anything else. So I said, well, you can't do that because you've got to find her intentionally, you've got to make a decision that they're intentionally homeless so that the Section 190 duty kicks in. But they refused to do that. Now, I think I was talking about this last time. And so we thought we took them to court, and the judges were really negative about the obligation to process a fresh application. So we thought we'd have to send her to another council, who would then either accept a duty or refer her back to the Ealing themselves, and then we'd get a decision. But on Ofori Addo, I think that's the name of the case here. Yeah, they seem to be saying, I don't know what they're saying here, that they can make a decision which is unsatisfactory, and you've either got to, I suppose, do what I tried to do with Ealing, which is to judicially review them if they don't tell you about Section 190. But it didn't work when I tried it, so we just have to keep trying on that. That's the other one I was looking at, and then the other one, which is, again, I'm sorry to sound like a name dropper, but you guys mentioned it. I hadn't seen this till tonight. There's a case on Nearly Legal called Chiam. It's actually spelled Thiam, but it's pronounced Chiam, like CH, versus Richmond Housing Partnership. And that's one of my cases where it's a possession case based on hoarding. And you may remember that one of the defences under a defence under the Equality Act that's available to people with a disability is that you can't evict somebody as a result of something arising out of a disability unless you can demonstrate that you've sort of considered other means of resolving the problem which wouldn't result in kicking the person out. And so the argument with hoarding is that you can do other things. You could even refer the case to the Court of Protection, where they could make orders to the effect that the person, because the problem with hoarding is people just won't cooperate with putting it right. So you could get an order that they have to be sort of restrained, and then people can go in and tidy the place up against their wishes. But the problem was the landlords didn't want to apply to the Court of Protection, and they referred the case to Adult Social Services on the basis that they could consider what support they could give her, including, if necessary, referring her to the Court of Protection. And this was actually a Jan Luberg case, and when I was in court, the landlord they served witness summonses on the social workers, and I don't want to be unkind, but the social workers were so bad. I mean, just literally, they had really very little idea what they were doing, and it seemed very cruel to sort of press them on the subject because it was just like tormenting a child, really. And what they were basically doing was they'd knock on the door and say, can we help you with the hoarding? And she'd say, what hoarding? Or I'm not going to come out. And they'd say, all right, then we'll close our file. And so the argument was that if you make a referral to social services and they do a rubbish job, you ought to at least make a complaint or something. You can't just say, well, we made a complaint, we referred the case to social services, they haven't done anything, so it's okay to kick her out on the street. But unfortunately, Jan Luber did say that was okay.
So that was because that was just before he retired, right? Because I'm trying to, So there's an interesting section in the Care Act which I don't fully understand, to be honest, because I don't see how it kind of doesn't breach data issues. But so basically, if you would, so hoarding can often be a safeguarding issue in the sense of self-neglect. So you can kind of trigger a, potentially trigger a safeguarding alert if there is hoarding in present, and that should really give the council a duty to carry out an assessment under Section 9. However, if someone like you say, someone said, "Oh, do you know, I don't need it, thanks, I don't want it," then the social services can still conduct an assessment under Section 11. And effectively, you basically carry out the assessment without the personnel. You basically think, okay, what do we think they might want? So you can involve kind of other support workers and other people that might know the person. As I say, it's a bit tricky data-wise, but I would imagine that would have been open to those social workers to say, okay, well, look, you've turned it down, but we can see there's an issue here. We can see that there's dangers, there's risks that need dealing with. So we are going to do something. We're not just going to close the case down. So as I say, I've not seen it kind of in action, but it does. I'm just Google it now. Actually, can't remember what the wording is, but I think it could potentially be useful in quite a few situations.
Oh, please, anything you can think of would be appreciated. I should say to anybody that's interested in this subject, there's Garden Court are doing a webinar on hoarding and the Court of Protection, which is next week, I think.
When you can I share my screen, Will?
Yeah, let me see. I'll try and figure out how you can do that.
I thought, let me try. I think I might be able to do it. Let me see if that works. Can you guys see that?
No.
Yeah.
What I can do though, hang on a sec. I can do this. Watch. I can do. If I go, this will be very small, but I can try and make it bigger.
Or if you just search for Section 11 of the Care Act, because I'll read out what if you say. Basically, so subsection 1, where an adult refuses needs assessment, the local authority concerned is not required to carry out the assessment. But then it says, but the local authority may not rely on subsection 1, and so must carry out a needs assessment if A, the adult lacks capacity to refuse the assessment and the authority is satisfied that carrying out the assessment would be in the adult's best interest, or the adult is experiencing or is at risk of abuse or neglect. Now, if you turn up to someone who's hoarding and you say, do you want some support with the hoarding? And they say, what hoarding? There's no hoarding. What are you talking about? I would say that you could probably carry out a capacity assessment based on that and say, well, do you know what, we think there's something amiss here. Do the capacity assessment, or again, and I'd like to bring. I know some people who would be really good on this, but understanding hoarding as a safeguarding issue in the sense that it can be self-neglect. So often we think of abuse as when someone's abusing someone else, but actually self-neglect would kind of meet that requirement. So there's kind of some more stuff. I'm not going to read it all out, but as I say, I think there's, in a situation involving hoarding or that sort of thing, I think that Section 11 would certainly mean that social workers can't just close the case and walk off. They'd have to certainly, I think, probably make a record of why they don't think Section 11 applies. So I don't know how helpful that is, Will, but I'm interested by that section.
It is helpful. Plus, I think that the other side of it is, coming back to the Homelessness Reduction Act, that if somebody is facing eviction due to hoarding problems, you could ask the council to look at that under the prevention duty, because they would then be able to come up with a plan for helping them avoiding being evicted, which is what I'm planning to do. I'm sort of kicking myself on this case a bit because there's a voice in my head saying, well, it's all very well saying that you should say that the council should have gone to the Court of Protection and the landlord should have complained to the council. And why didn't you do it yourself? That's to say, why didn't I judicially review the council for not doing a proper assessment? Or why didn't I apply to Court of Protection? I'm not sure I would have been able to apply to Court of Protection, but on her behalf. But anyway, the reason I didn't want to do it was because it's crazy that you need to have a solicitor in order to get social services to do their job before you're evicted, because that means for any vulnerable person who's facing eviction, their landlords can get away with saying, well, it's a pity they didn't have a solicitor, but they didn't, so we'll just take advantage of that fact.
Wouldn't if you did go to Court of Protection but social services hadn't been involved yet, wouldn't the Court of Protection or whatever, the judge or whatever, just not say, well, you take the least restrictive option. Why have you not, why have you not considered social care and offered those kind of things? And then until you offer those kinds of things, we're not, court for protection wouldn't potentially get involved. That would be my understanding. Or have I misunderstood that?
I think my understanding would be that you'd need to show that there was a sort of issue that the court of protection needed to address, and that really would be whether or not she could be forced to cooperate with plans to clean her place up. And I think it would have to be somebody else asking for that, even though she doesn't have capacity to be a party to proceedings. I couldn't really go that much against her express wishes, I don't think.
Yeah. So I mean, so I did try reading this earlier, and I don't understand the way they talk about these cases. So are you saying for this one, is it successful yet, or do you need to take this one to the Court of Appeal?
We've been on a roll of bad luck on this one so far, because we got our defence was rejected by Jan Luber in the county court, and then it was rejected by Mr. Justice Swift as a High Court judge doing an initial appeal. So I can now do a second appeal to the Court of Appeal, which is what Ms. Odioforo was doing in the other case. And this time hopefully we're going to get somebody who specialises in court of protection work to work on it as well. Because the problem is that I'm not an expert on the court of protection, and I probably could have done better if I had been. But that was what I wanted to say about that case.
I mean, it just seems if you are successful, then it's probably worth putting a one-sentence complaint into the housing association or whoever, saying you guys need training on hoarding because you guys, didn't fully understand.
Oh yeah, they definitely.
And just throw that off into the ether, and you never know, it might get them training.
Yeah, that's the other problem. The housing association didn't really. I mean, they were nice people, but they just didn't really come to grasp with the actual issues in it. And they were saying, well, it's up to her to sort herself out, and that's like pick up your bed and walk, really. So more to follow on that one, but I'm hoping we'll get to Court of Appeal and they'll take a more tenant-friendly approach. What I was going to show you was that thing we were talking about the other day, if I can get there. Hang on. Oh, it's here. It's that one. And I go back to the library, and then we go to, this was the, sorry, it's not that, but it was the BBC article. I'll just see if I can get to it on, is it on there? Yes, here we go. Did I actually show you this the other day, or did we just talk about it?
So I saw it anyway, but yeah, no, but we didn't kind of go through it in any detail.
Yes, I mean this is an article about the fact that some Peabody tenants had to go to solicitors to get legal action taken against Peabody due to the damp and mould in their homes, and the BBC have reported this. But my worry about this, like a lot of stuff that the BBC do on social welfare issues, is that it's, I suppose, like a lot of stuff really, it's all as if nobody's ever heard of this happening, and it's just sort of, and maybe to your average, I don't know, the sort of middle class people in the shires or something, this is news, just like sort of things that happen what in the wider world are. But it's frustrating that, I mean, this is a problem that people like us have been familiar with for years, and it's just been getting worse and worse and worse. But it's treated as if it's a brand new problem, which and that this is somehow a sort of exceptionally bad example, but it's fairly typical. I mean, I'm finding that in terms of homelessness law at the moment, most I'd say 1 in 3 cases I get referred is a case where the person's not happy with the with the Section 193 accommodation, private sector referral. I mean, you're lucky if it's in the sort of London area, that's good. But then there's usually other problems. But then there's always the problem of damp and mould and stuff. So you have to do a review, Section 202 review on suitability, but then also a pre-action letter to the landlord on the damp and mould, which is so bad that it's present straight away. It's not like they've done the place up and it comes out 6 months later. It's still there as soon as they move in. So yeah, that was something I saw, which I thought we talked about and I'd mentioned. Just see if there's anything else.
So we'll, someone in the chat's just put a resource in there about adult social care. So
Well, I'll come back to that.
yeah, so I'm just looking through it now. So I think they're saying that it's written by a solicitor, kind of educating the public in the wider world. So
I'll go over
there's a
to
lot
the
too. I'm
comments
just kind of
page.
having a shifty around. There's a lot on there.
Shall we have a look at the comments then? So I'm just going to go through these. I'll get to that in a sec if that's all right, because other people. So, got Ginger G. I think this is for you, Mike. If it wasn't for your help and support, I would not be rehoused recently. I want to thank you all endlessly. Oh, maybe it's all of us.
It's all of
Literally,
us, yeah.
following your advice helped me conquer the gatekeeping of over 23 years. Thank you all so much. Well, that's good news. And then we've got Cheeseface. Hello, Cheeseface. Nice to see you again. And people listen to these guys and pose the right questions. They're all fabulous. So that's Ginger G again. Thank you very much. That's very kind. And then I will just go to, is it this one you were talking about? No. Yes. I can say from personal experience, adult social services, particularly social workers, aren't educated on the Care Act. Cascader is a good resource. Cascader is a good resource, a solicitor trying to educate the general public. And then you've just had a look at that, Mike, have you? And what did you
So
see?
there's there's basically a section where they've kind of picked out interesting like ombudsman decisions from. I mean, if I go back, so there's the LGO on there, but you got hospital. So there's I mean, I didn't even know there were this many ombudsmans basically. So there's a lot of stuff on there, like loads of stuff on there.
There's a good whole section around advocacy, like a database of advocacy, involvement, participation, information rights, consultation rights. Like, this seems like a gold mine.
This does look really good.
How housing rights fit in with the Care Act, how the Care Act fits in with Mental Health Act, because I think that's something we often talk about. Is there's all these different acts, and so many people just focus on the one, where actually, if you can use them all in your sort of tool belt, it's the most effective for people, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. So were you guys aware of this site before?
No.
No, I wasn't. So Roxy Varley, thank you very much for telling us about this. I'll be going away and studying this. Looks like we could use this as a sort of springboard for discussion on every show, really, doesn't it? Because it's there's a lot of there's a lot of material there.
It looks like the main blogger is Belinda. I mean, it's always worth kind of just giving people a shout, see if they'll come on a live stream or something.
Yeah. Oh yeah, this looks good. She looks a very interesting person to have on, and these other folk as well. Because that's one of the problems with this is you need to be. You almost well, I mean, even I as a lawyer, can find it very difficult to find my way through out of the forest, as it were, when dealing with these institutions. Because, like, I think it was something I was going to raise. I suppose I could raise it now since we've got a bit of time. But there's the actual concept of a social. I mean, and again, this isn't an attack on social workers, because I mean, there's all sorts of training issues, and I'm sure those people at on the TM case had not really been properly trained or managed. But it's difficult to sort of pin down quite what a social worker does or who they're from. Like, I've got a case in Tower Hamlets at the moment where there is a social worker involved, but it looks like he's an NHS social worker rather than a local authority social worker. And then it just becomes difficult then, because you say, well, what exactly are you doing? Because are you implementing a Care Act assessment, care plan, or are you doing something following a discharge from hospital? And also, I'm a bit stuck on what I do with NHS social workers if they're not doing what they should do, because I then have to figure out all the law on the NHS, and somewhere there's a law or statutory instrument that says presumably what their job is. But that's really frustrating. And then you've got all those different things with different letters, like CMHT and community man, that's the same thing, but it's really difficult. So you need to be a lawyer with a lot of training to just figure out where you are in the forest, as it were, not just to be completely overwhelmed. So I'm going to do some research on that. The good news is my client who's got the NHS social worker the NHS social worker wasn't responding to correspondence for a long time, but he's made contact, I think, today, so I can get on to him. Having said that, I got a fantastic result from West Sussex adult social services team. They did a really good reassessment on one of my cases, and they agreed to pay off somebody's rent arrears and pay the rent and give them support. So that was a really good result. And the social worker rang me up on Friday to tell me the good news, which it's a big difference from London, with people actually sort of taking some pleasure in helping people. So that was that. Let's see if we've got any more comments here. No, I think we're okay for the time being. Can we talk for a minute about your video, Mike? Let me see if I can find it here. It's in my read inbox here. There was two you did. What I wanted to ask you is, actually this is the wrong one. There's another one you did about should a housing officer quit, or shall I just find it, Mike? The homeless best practice. I'm not going to play the video, but I'll just get it up on screen. It's this one here, isn't it? Videos. And then, yes, I'll mute it. Oh, it is muted. So yeah, you did this video. I'll just show you the page. There it is. All right, there. So the housing officer's dilemma, and I suppose this is a dilemma for anybody. But my question, the issue that you were talking about, I think if I can summarize it, was that if you, as a sort of proverbial housing officer who's joined for all the right reasons, looks around and finds they're in a sort of toxic environment where people are getting messed around, you've got the public, the applicants, or so let's say where gatekeeping is a sort of accepted practice. Do you stay or do you quit? And without going, your view, and I think I agree with it, was that you should quit, really, because there is a strong argument for staying on the basis that somebody worse may come along, but that's sort of like an argument for voting Conservative, because Reform might get in or something. But and also I was thinking, it sounds very tacky to say, but like Grandad took the view that the guy in the book was saying, and he stayed in the SS right up until 1945, and he got into a lot of trouble, but he was hoping that he could change it from the inside. But what I was thinking was is this a thing of psychology or sort of sociology, or because do people, and it ties in with this book you were reading, you were talking about before, which I've just got the audio book for, the Lucifer. Is it Lucifer syndrome or complex, or
Lucifer effect?
Lucifer effect. So sorry if I'm rambling and people are losing me, but the idea is it's a fact of life, and it happens with public institutions. I mean, I noticed it when I was a kid at school. If you made some kid milk monitor or something, or put them in charge and said, you report to the teachers if other kids are talking while the teacher's out of the room, they would become sort of authoritarian, and it would happen very quickly. And they'd be sort of keeping little notebooks on so they could report their fellow students. So there's a sort of gravitational force towards evil and cruelty. And I was wondering whether that's the problem, in the sense that if you gave a housing department all the resources they needed, and there was no need for gatekeeping, would people still do you think people might still do it just for kicks?
I think you
Get
would
fed up
get
of
one or
saying
two,
yes to
but
people.
yeah, I think if there's no resource issues, I think it would generally be pretty good. But I do, yeah, there are a few. So I'm trying to, I tried to do the video to kind of give the best kind of possible spin on the housing officer's position. So obviously, like, you know, kind of, I think I was very fair to them, and fairly generous to them. But yeah, I think there's always going to be some sadists out there. But yeah, I think my experience, I think I said before, like Bedford, is that had they had decent managers and enough resources, I think a vast majority would have been absolutely fine. I mean, I think, I mean, the Peter Singer's book's well worth reading. I'm probably not going to say the words associated with his argument because it's probably not good for the YouTube algorithm. But yeah, he's kind of, I mean, he gets himself in a lot of trouble for a lot of things. Very prominent philosopher, but I mean, I'll give you like a non-rude version of one of the arguments he makes. He basically says it costs 40 grand to train a guide dog for someone with a vision impairment. And that's going to, you know, that's going to be good for 10 years, as in that's a lifespan of a dog. But you'd be much better off basically paying like £200 a pop to get, you know, cataract operations in India or something like that. I think that's the example he gives, because he basically you're going to give that person, you know, proper sight for, you know, for the rest of their life. And he gets very critical of like the whole Make-A-Wish type stuff. I think that's what it's called, where you've got like a, you know, a kid with cancer, and they like, you know, kind of get like the mayor of like Los Angeles to kind of take him around in a Batmobile, that sort of thing. So Peter Singer's like highly critical of that sort of stuff. I mean, we had that in was it Newcastle or Sunderland? There was like a you know, kid who you know, kind of had a terminal illness, and they kind of, you know, really kind of, yeah, I mean, they're driven by sympathy and humanness. But yeah, that's the sort of thing Peter Singer will say was actually, yeah, that's kind of, you could have saved far more people had you used the money differently. So it's an interesting, I mean, I think in general it's like a really interesting book to read. And
I'm going to read that.
yeah, he's yeah, I mean, I really like him, but yeah, as I say, he annoys he genuinely offends quite a lot of people in what he says. So
what's his name again?
Peter Singer. He's still alive. He must be in his 80s. He's like a lot of vegans, like kind of. No, I'm not vegan by the way, but just a lot of vegans attribute Peter Singer to why they chose to be a vegan, because again, he kind. I mean, he does this thing where he kind of like tries to break down charity work into like some sort of unit. So he says, you know, you can give like £1,000 to a museum, like an art museum, to build a new art wing or something. It says, you know, that will like, yeah, mean that, you know, a certain number of people will be able to enjoy art for 5 minutes, you know, and you add it all up. And you know, and then compare that to restoring someone's sight, and what would you rather do? So, and he's also behind the whole GiveWell. I don't know if you heard of GiveWell. So it's like a GiveWell.org. It basically measures charities and basically, and mostly just says they're rubbish. But so GiveWell basically recommends you give your money to one of 3 charities, one of which is a mosquito net charity because they know that it works. Another one's like a deworming charity or something, because again, they know that's where your money's going to get the best results. So yeah, I find the whole lot interesting. I say I'm going to do I'm actually going to do a separate video just talking about that in terms of like how we measure homelessness charities. And yeah, what a lot of charities kind of just waste their money, and yeah, don't use their resources very well, basically.
No, that's good. It's a controversial subject, isn't it? But an important one to discuss. So is that the book you're talking about, The Life You Can Save?
That's a different one of his. I don't know if he's done that since, either before or after. It's one of his more recent books. But yeah, I think the most good you could do is maybe like 10 years old or something. But yeah, it's the same idea. So this whole kind of movement of effective altruism, where you've got basically bankers giving away 95% of their earnings rather than going to volunteer in the soup run. And Peter Singer's like, yeah, that's way better, because they're kind of using their resources much better. So yeah, that's the front cover of the.
I remember
what I'm talking about.
When I used to be in the Labour Party in Battersea, they used to do a jumble sale every year, and they keep all this rubbish at the back of the local headquarters during the year, and then every year they bring it out again and put it on tables, and sort of somebody would pay 5p for an old Cliff Richard record or something, and one old guy made the point one year when they were talking about the plans for this. Also, they do a lot of time planning for it. He said, "Why on earth are you doing this?" He said, "If each of you people here, and you all look like you sort of earn a bob or two, if each of you put a fiver on the table, and stopped all this messing about, you'd make 10 times as much as you would with this going through the motions business." And I thought, yeah, that's a really good point. But nobody had sort of dared say it. They just all say, "Oh, well, we managed to raise £12 last year by all of us, 10 people spent a Saturday afternoon." But those are the sort of issues you've got to address, aren't they, really? So that's probably getting it as well. We're only going half an hour. But unless there's anything anybody else wants to talk about, I suppose just in terms of future content, it'd be quite good to talk, because I think I was just wondering what I do for future shows. I think probably what I might be best off doing is trying to make videos as sort of instructional ones, like the one I did about statements of case recently. I mean, it was. I'm not that pleased with it in terms of its production standards and stuff, but at least I got something out there, and I'm hoping that I could show people to just do videos like that and then maybe discuss them in the live stream, because I think maybe your it's strange because people know that my videos my show's up there, but then they're putting all the questions on your show, and it would be silly of me to sort of try and imitate or just have two of the same thing in a way, wouldn't it? But I'm happy to do that. Sorry, by the way, I forgot to. You said there was a couple of questions you wanted to put in. We've still got a bit of time.
So I mean, they're before I get to that, actually, I just want to mention. So, I guess just kind of potentially get some feedback on it. I think I've talked a little while ago about running an online event called the A to Z of Council Housing Myths or something. So I've got response from Sarah Steinhardt at Dowey Street today, and she's basically suggested that her colleague Cormac Devlin gets involved. Now, I've not actually definitely got confirmation yet, but I'm pretty sure I'll get it. So looking to run an event in a couple of months' time, and I've already kind of compiled a list of the kind of common things, but it's not exhaustive. So I think there's a lot more stuff out there. But the idea is it's like a kind of just a real kind of quick fire. You can't make an application without local connection. Right, here's the kind of legal argument against that, and then you just move on. So you don't get into the nuance of it. You just basically say get through as many of these myths as possible, just to kind of give people the kind of the resource they would need to argue that if they were challenging the council. So so that's slightly closer to actually happening now. I've been planning it for a while, but just takes time to get people together. So if anyone's got anyone out there's got kind of those kind of common things they've come across, like common sort of gatekeeping tactics and common myths that we come across, then it'd be good to just kind of send them in some way so I can kind of make sure they're on the list, because I think, as I say, there's probably gonna be like 30 or 40 items to go through on the night, and it'll just be a case of just getting through as quick as we can.
Yeah, that'd be good. So I had this idea yesterday that I could do one on the eviction process again. I think I've done one before on that, but just talking about what you do if you want to try and stop an eviction happening, if it's possible.
I think also people are going to start wanting to know about the new legislation coming in, which I haven't spent any time at all on yet, because I'm waiting for it to actually be solid. But there's a lot of videos going around on YouTube, like landlords kind of worried about it. I don't think still isn't that much certainty about what it's going to look like yet, but
no,
I think that's something to kind of bear in mind.
And does anyone know when it's due to be unveiled?
It was just, I think it was heard again in the Lords like a couple of weeks ago or something, and I didn't hear anything significant about what was being changed, if anything. So I don't know, but I think it's going to be a lot of people want to understand what the changes are.
Yeah. So I'll try and do some more content on how-to guides, as it were, and then maybe we can just have a kick around discussing those issues in the live stream. If I could do it as a two-part thing, if I could just find the time. and that's it really. I won't be around. Hang on, what's it? No, actually your live stream's Wednesday, isn't it, Mike? This week, so we can. Do you want to just leave it until then to do your comments, the questions? I'll try and fix it for a future show so that we can share your screens, because it can be done on here. I just haven't figured out how to do it. So unless there's anything you guys want to talk about, and there aren't any more questions on here, we could just call it a day for now, if you like.
Yeah, cool.
Right. So thank you for tuning in. Well, thank you guys for joining me, and to anybody who's watched it, and thanks again, Roxy, for your comments on with your contribution there. That's really useful. I'll go away and study that, and hopefully see everybody on Wednesday. Yeah.
Yeah, nice one. Thanks,
See-
Will. See you,
Bye.
Shannon. Take care.
Cheers, guys.